You've seen it. The posts declaring men are trash, the dating profiles listing masculine failings, the viral tweets celebrating male tears. And like most men, you probably think this is genuine hatred, real emotion born from deep resentment. But what if I told you that Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists who ever lived, predicted this exact phenomenon nearly a century ago? What we're witnessing isn't hatred at all. It's something far more fascinating and far more tragic. It's the shadow at work. Let me show you what's really happening beneath the surface of this modern gender theater. The persona, the mask. We show the world. Jung introduced a concept that explains almost everything you're seeing in modern gender discourse. The persona. The persona is the mask we wear for society, the public self we construct to gain acceptance and belonging. It's not who we truly are, it's who we need to be to survive in our social environment. When you encounter a woman posting about toxic masculinity or declaring that all men are garbage, you're not encountering her authentic self. You're encountering her persona, carefully constructed, socially rewarded, algorithmically optimized. This persona has been shaped by her social circle, her online community, and the invisible forces of collective expectation. Jung understood that the persona serves a necessary function. We all need some level of social adaptation, but he also warned of a grave danger. When the persona becomes too rigid, too divorced from the authentic self, the individual loses touch with their own humanity. They become, in Jung's words, merely a fragment of the collective psyche. This is exactly what's happening in modern gender discourse. Women adopt a persona of hostility, not because they feel it, but because their social environment rewards it. Every like, every share, every supportive comment reinforces the mask. The algorithm feeds the persona, and the persona grows stronger, while the authentic self grows weaker. I've worked with women who privately confess they don't actually believe what they post about men. They describe a feeling of being trapped, performing emotions they don't feel, expressing convictions they don't hold, all to maintain their place in the social hierarchy. One client told me, "It's like I'm watching myself say these things, and I don't even recognize who that person is anymore." This is the persona devouring the self. But here's what makes this particularly insidious. Social media has turned persona construction into a competitive sport. It's no longer enough to have a socially acceptable mask. You must have the most provocative, the most outrageous, the most attention-grabbing persona. The woman who can express the harshest criticism of men wins the social game. She gets the followers, the validation, the sense of belonging. What we refuse to see. Now we come to Jung's most powerful insight, the shadow. The shadow contains everything about ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge. The desires we deem unacceptable, the needs we consider weak, the truths that contradict our chosen identity. Here's the uncomfortable reality that Jung forces us to confront. When women perform hostility toward men, they're often projecting their own shadow onto the masculine. What does this mean? Let me explain. Many women today have been taught that needing men is weakness, that desiring male protection is oppression, that wanting traditional partnership is betrayal. These natural human desires don't disappear just because culture declares them unacceptable. Instead, they get pushed into the shadow, the dark basement of the psyche, where forbidden truths live. But the shadow doesn't stay quiet. It demands expression. And when we can't acknowledge our own shadow material, we project it onto others. We see in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. The woman who most viciously attacks men for their emotional needs may be suppressing her own desperate longing for emotional connection. The woman who mocks masculine desire for sex may be denying her own sexuality. The woman who ridicules men seeking validation may be drowning in her own need for approval. Jung called this shadow projection, and it's one of the most destructive psychological mechanisms in human behavior. When we project our shadow, we're not actually dealing with the other person at all. We're fighting with ourselves. Many women who have spent years building an identity around not needing men, only to realize in their 30s or 40s that they've suppressed fundamental human needs. They would confess, "I thought I was being strong. I thought I was being independent. But I was just running from the parts of myself that scared me, the parts that wanted to be soft, to be held, to be vulnerable with a man." The shadow doesn't care about ideology. It doesn't respect your carefully constructed persona. It will find a way to express itself. And when it does, it often comes out sideways, through anger, through projection, through the very behaviors we claim to oppose. The animus, the inner masculine. Jung identified another crucial element, the animus, the unconscious masculine aspect within every woman. The animus represents assertiveness, rational thought, and outward-directed energy. It's not bad or good, it simply is. But here's where modern culture has created a psychological crisis. Women have been encouraged to develop a hyperactive, aggressive animus, while simultaneously being taught that the actual masculine, embodied by real men, is toxic. This creates internal chaos. A woman develops her inner masculine qualities, but has no healthy external masculine to relate to. The animus becomes hostile, critical, destructive, rather than balanced and integrated. She projects this distorted inner masculine onto real men, seeing toxicity everywhere because her own animus has become toxic. Jung taught that psychological health requires integration, bringing the conscious and unconscious into dialogue, allowing the persona and the authentic self to align, making peace with the shadow, and developing a healthy relationship with the inner animus. But integration is hard work. It requires honest self-examination. It demands that we face uncomfortable truths about ourselves. And in a culture that rewards performance over authenticity, that celebrates outrage over introspection, integration seems impossible. The women most hostile to masculinity often have the most unintegrated animus. They're at war with their own inner masculine, and that war spills out into the world. Every man becomes a target for the unresolved conflict within. The collective unconscious and archetypal patterns. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious reveals why these patterns spread so rapidly. We're not dealing with individual psychology alone. We're dealing with archetypal forces that exist across human consciousness. The archetype of the terrible mother appears when nurturing is replaced with control and critique. The archetype of the devouring feminine emerges when receptivity becomes rejection. These aren't just metaphors, they're patterns embedded in human psychology across millennia. Modern feminism has activated certain archetypal patterns while suppressing others. The warrior maiden is celebrated, while the nurturing mother is dismissed. The wise woman becomes the bitter critic. The sacred feminine, which Jung saw as essential to psychological wholeness, gets replaced by a caricature of empowerment that leaves women empty. Young women today are absorbing these archetypal patterns through social media, mistaking cultural programming for authentic self-expression. They don't realize they're playing out ancient patterns in new clothing. The hostility feels fresh and revolutionary, but Jung would recognize it as a tale as old as humanity. The battle between persona and self, between shadow and consciousness. The collective unconscious also explains the competitive element. Women are competing not just for individual social status, but responding to deep archetypal patterns about female hierarchies and mate selection. The competition for who can need men least is actually an inverted form of competing for male attention, the shadow version of age-old mating dynamics. Breaking free. Jung's ultimate goal for human development was individuation, becoming truly yourself, integrating all aspects of your psyche into a coherent whole. This is the opposite of what we see in performative gender hostility. Individuation requires courage. It means facing your shadow and acknowledging the parts of yourself you've been trained to reject. For modern women, this might mean admitting, I do want male protection sometimes, and that doesn't make me weak. I desire masculine energy in a partner, and that doesn't make me oppressed. I feel more fulfilled in traditional partnership than radical independence, and that's okay. These admissions are heretical in many social circles, but they're essential for psychological wholeness. More women begin this journey. They're exhausted from the performance. They're recognizing that the validation from strangers doesn't fill the void inside. They're discovering that real confidence doesn't come from tearing men down, but from building themselves up authentically. One woman described her awakening. I realized I'd been performing strength for so long that I forgot what actual strength felt like. Real strength is being vulnerable. Real confidence is admitting what you need. Real empowerment is choosing connection over the approval of people who don't even know you. This is individuation in action, the persona beginning to align with the authentic self, the shadow being integrated rather than projected, the animus finding healthy expression. But the path isn't easy. Women who begin speaking authentically about appreciating men face severe social consequences. They get called pick-me's, traitors, brainwashed. The collective punishes those who break from its patterns. Jung understood this. He knew that individuation often means standing alone, accepting that the crowd will reject you for being yourself. But he also knew it was the only path to genuine wholeness. The return to authenticity. What does authentic femininity look like in Jung's framework? It's not about returning to oppressive traditions or abandoning progress. It's about integrating all aspects of the psyche, conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, light and shadow. Authentic femininity includes strength that doesn't require diminishing others, independence that still allows for interdependence, assertiveness balanced with receptivity, the ability to give and receive love without keeping score, honoring both traditionally feminine and masculine qualities within. This authentic femininity has nothing to do with the performance we see online. It's quieter, deeper, more powerful. It doesn't need validation because it comes from internal integration rather than external approval. Jung wrote about the transcendent function, the psyche's ability to create new possibilities by holding the tension between opposites. Women today are caught between opposites, the cultural message to reject men versus the human need for connection. The transcendent function would create a third way, neither submission nor hostility, but conscious, authentic partnership. This partnership would honor both masculine and feminine energies, recognizing that they're complementary rather than oppositional. It would allow vulnerability without weakness, strength without cruelty, independence without isolation. Women who release the performance report feeling lighter, more whole, more genuinely confident. They describe their relationships improving dramatically because they're finally showing up as themselves rather than as a carefully curated persona. Women realize when they stopped performing hatred and started being honest about what they wanted, everything changed. The right kind of man wasn't repelled by their authenticity. He was drawn to it. All those years they wasted pushing men away to prove they didn't need them, when what they really needed was to be honest about wanting partnership. For men, understanding the game. Men, here's what you need to understand through Jung's lens. When you encounter hostility from women, you're rarely encountering their authentic self. You're encountering a persona shaped by social forces, a shadow projection of their own unacknowledged needs, an unintegrated animus lashing out. This doesn't mean you should tolerate abuse or disrespect. It means you should stop taking it personally. The hostility isn't about you. It's about their internal psychological state. Your task is to remain grounded in your own individuation. Don't get pulled into the theater. Don't defend against projections. Don't argue with personas. Instead, embody authentic masculinity, calm, grounded, purposeful. When you encounter a woman trapped in performative hostility, your authenticity will either repel her, if she's committed to the performance, or intrigue her, if she's ready to drop the mask. Either way, you win. You filter out incompatible partners and attract those ready for real connection. Jung taught that the greatest gift we can give another person is to do our own inner work. When you've integrated your own shadow, worked with your own unconscious material, and committed to your own individuation, you naturally attract others on the same path. The way forward. The gender war you see online isn't real. It's a massive collective shadow projection, a clash of competing personas, an archetypal drama playing out on a technological stage. Real men and women, away from screens, still connect, still love, still build families and create beauty together. The online hostility is noise, fascinating from a psychological perspective, but ultimately empty. Jung's message is one of hope. Consciousness is always possible. Integration is always available. Individuation is always within reach. The performance can end. The masks can come off. The authentic self can emerge. For women, your true power lies not in rejecting men, but in integrating your own psyche. Not in performing strength, but in being genuinely whole. Not in winning social approval, but in honoring your authentic self. For men, your task is to remain authentic in an inauthentic world, to do your own inner work, to refuse participation in the theater, to embody the masculine in its highest form, grounded, purposeful, strong enough to be gentle. The shadow wants to stay hidden. The persona wants to survive. But the self, your authentic, integrated whole self, wants to emerge. The question is, are you brave enough to let it? Thanks for watching. If this video gave you something to think about, drop a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it too.